Hi, I'm April. I am a singer-songwriter and music teacher, and today I am going to teach you how to write a parody song. So as far as I can tell, there are 3 specific types of parody song. The first is to take a pre-existing song and just replace the lyrics with lyrics about something else. The second is taking a pre-existing song, artist, or genre, and then just expanding upon it to the point where it gets super crazy and weird. And a lot of the time, this is going to be with a melody and with harmony that doesn't match the original, or sounds enough like it that you kind of get the basic gist. The third type of parody song takes a song that is completely unique, so you're writing a new song, except that it makes fun of a specific concept. So we're going to go through each of those individual types of parody songs, and then we are going to talk about how we would go about writing our own in any of those given categories. So we're going to start with type 1, which is replacing the lyrics of a pre-existing song. So in this example, you already have most of the work done for you. You already have a melody, you already have harmony, and you've already got a rhyme scheme and a structure all set out for you. So all that you need to do is start to match something else to that structure. A good example of this style of parody writing would be just about any Weird Al song. I think for this video, let's focus on maybe the song Yoda. This is a parody of the song Lola by the Kinks, but it talks all about Star Wars. Our first step here would be to find the main idea or the hook of the song. So in this case, it's pretty easy. Our hook is Lola. Lo-lo-lo-lo-lo-la. Now what you want to do if you want to do something similar to this song is find whatever the hook of your song is, whatever gets repeated or is at the end of the chorus, and you're going to find a phrase or a word that sounds kind of like that. So in this example, he takes the name Lola and then finds a name that is sort of similar to it. So we have that O and that sound that happen in that word. So what he does is he finds the word Yoda. And from there, we have a wealth of opportunity to come up with some creative Star Wars references.
Oh God.
Hi, kitty. I know. Don't like my Wookiee. So the next step actually becomes really easy in this particular song, because the idea is that we want to expand on whatever our main idea is. So in our original song, we're meeting someone named Lola. And in this song, we are meeting someone named Yoda. So all that I would do here is just bubble map the idea. So you'd start with that word, that name, Yoda, and then from there you start building all of the Star Wars references that you can think of. Once you have a pretty substantial list of Star Wars references or things that you think could come in handy, if you're talking about Yoda, right? Small, green, lifts things with his mind, force. You can start trying to match it up with other concepts in the original song. So when the original song starts with, met her in a club down in Old Soho, you would say, met him in a swamp down in Dagobah. At this point, you can just start by picking the structure apart of your original song and then layering your new song on top of it. The rhymes don't have to be exact, but try to make sure that the rhyme scheme is exact. If you want to get really fancy with it, you can also start counting the stresses or counting the syllables in each line and then try to make sure that those match up. The biggest thing is making sure that your story doesn't get stale throughout. So whatever you're writing your song about, make sure that you start with one story and then keep expanding on it with each verse to make sure it gets more interesting or more compelling as it goes. Now we're going to move on to type number 2, which is basically the semi-homemade cooking of parody writing. So basically we're going to start with a specific genre or a song or an artist, and what we're going to do is take the main idea or the main focus of that type of song, and we're going to expand upon it until it either gets really intense or really crazy or absurd or really creepy. And once it gets to the point where it's just totally distant from the original song, we're going to have a really interesting parody. The first step is to find those little idiosyncrasies in the way that the original source material is written. So if you are Flight of the Conchords and you want to write a song that's parodying Prince, think about the specific things that Prince likes to write about. Think about the instrumentation, think about that little falsetto, think about the way he plays guitar, and all of those things are going to be the starting point for your song. You basically want to get the essence of the song before you actually move on to the structure. Now, the object with this type of song is not to parody it with something completely unrelated. The idea is to bring out what's so ridiculous about the song in the first place. And I do want to say here that it is so important that you enjoy the song that you're working with, because it is so much fun to write a parody song about something you love, and can be a little less fun if you're writing about something that you don't really love. Once you think you've found the essence of your song, you can start by moving on to the actual structure. You can start by outlining. I think outlining is a really great place to start, always. And when you start that outlining process, you want to make sure that you are taking your idea to the extreme. To go with that Flight of the Conchords example, we can think about beautiful women, and specifically hyperbole about beautiful women. So what we can do here is either layer on more hyperbole, or strip it back and make it as realistic as possible. And if we're making it realistic, he probably has never met the most beautiful woman in the whole world. You could totally think about, well, I've definitely met the most beautiful woman in this particular room. And at that point, you've got a really fun place to start building your comedy song. So instead of saying, you are the reason that God made women, you could say, you could be a part-time model. Another option is to expose the irony in the song you're listening to. A great example of this would be Put Yourself First from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. In general, the writers on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend are geniuses, and they're so good at exposing the irony in just everyday situations. But this one is really funny because what they do is that they take a very specific type of song and they're making fun of one in particular. But the idea here is that beauty standards for women tend to favor the perspective of men. And the main premise of the song becomes, put yourself first for him. Parody song type number 3 is to write a song that doesn't exist yet in any form, but that makes fun of a specific concept. You see this kind of thing done pretty often by artists like The Lonely Island. You also see this a lot on Broadway whenever you see like a show that's about some comedic thing. So Avenue Q or The Book of Mormon are great examples here as well. But you start basically with something that you want to make fun of. Now, I just want to make it clear here that this is not the time to be making fun of other people's cultures or other people's lifestyles. But if you have your own culture or lifestyle that you want to make fun of, go for it. Do that. So once you have something to make fun of, you can really just go about the songwriting process the way you would in any other circumstance. However you like to start writing a song is great. If you don't know where to start with writing a song, you can watch that video right there and it will help you on your way. But there are also a couple of little things that you should keep in mind. For instance, prosody is a really important thing. Generally, when you are writing a really sad song, you want to stick to maybe minor keys, or at least chords that kind of sound sad given the context. A lot of the time, those kinds of songs are played slower or have a little bit more swell to them. Whereas if you're writing a really happy number, you can kind of bounce around and you can play in major keys and all of those good things. Now, obviously, major and minor do not necessarily dictate whether things are going to sound happy or sad, but they are a good jumping off point. Now, the thing about prosody is that it doesn't always have to line up perfectly. So in comedy in particular, when you want to make someone laugh, a lot of the time, reversing their expectation is the thing that's going to help. So for instance, if you were writing a really happy, upbeat song, but put it to a really sad chord progression, it might throw your audience off and it might be kind of unexpected. Another thing to keep in mind is sarcasm. So sarcasm is really great, and it is a wonderful tool when you're writing a funny song, but keep in mind that you want to make sure that the sarcasm is obvious enough that your listener can figure it out. A lot of the time what happens with sarcasm is that your listener might not necessarily understand sarcasm or might not understand that you are being sarcastic in that moment. And the problem with that is that if your listener doesn't realize it's sarcastic, they might agree with the bad thing, or they might disagree with a good thing, or they might just totally mix up what it is that you are intending to say. So be sure to really over-exaggerate when you're being sarcastic. Use a lot of really absurd examples, or go off in a really weird direction, but make sure that it sounds clear that sarcasm is your intention. One of my favorite comedy songs is Randy Newman's Political Science. The joke in this song is that America is the one starting all of these wars and starting all of these arguments, so we should just wipe out everybody on the planet, and that way everything will be solved. Easy. Asia's crowded, Europe's too old, Africa's far too hot, and Canada's too cold, and South America stole our name. Let's drop the big one, there'll be no one left to blame us. So you can see right off the bat that it's really funny and it's really sarcastic, and the sarcasm is built on this totally ridiculous premise that everybody's so awful except for us because we're great. So from there, what he does to make it stay interesting is that he adds this little bridge, which basically says, we're going to keep Australia, but only because we like kangaroos. Which is another thing you can actually use in your own parody writing, which is the idea that in your bridge, you want to do something different and something unique that you haven't done before in your other sections. So here what he does is he just finds the opposite of everything he's been talking about, and he uses that to give us a section that's a little bit lighter and a little bit less sarcastic and a little bit funny. You also want to make sure that your intensity builds throughout the song, or at least that your absurdity or your comedy builds throughout the song. You want to make it a little more ridiculous and a little more fun as the song goes on. So if your chorus is staying the same, or if you have a refrain line, all you need to do is make sure that each time your verse happens, it's informing what's happening in the chorus. That way your joke doesn't get stale and your listener can still find new ways to appreciate it, or new kind of perspectives to find. And with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this was helpful. I hope you now have a better understanding of how to write a parody song. And if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, leave a comment, share it with all of your friends, and make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss anything in the future.